No, it's okay. I probably wouldn't have been able to think of a good joke anyways. So I'll just try and do a decent intro here. Um, all right, welcome everybody. On a planet spinning its way to damnation amidst the fear and despair of a broken human race, who's left to fight for what's good and pure and remind you that the NHL has the worst officiating in the history of sports? That's right. It's Handkerchief Dynasty. We are back with our good friend, the High Priest of Oilers Magic. Hello, High Priest. As
Hello.
well as a special returning guest, Quinn Phillips returns to the Dynasty. Hello, Quinn.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Of course, yeah, no, it's our pleasure. It's wonderful to speak. So I think the last time we talked was probably in the off season, right? It was a while ago.
It was right before the bubble, I feel like, wasn't it?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's really
I
like a
remember I was
lifetime
a little
ago.
hard on the Oilers, and then I had every right to be.
Well, yeah, you turned out to be 100% correct in terms of your dread, which is actually something I wanted to talk to you both about today, because I think I've stumbled upon a metaphor. Like, you know, we had the Toronto series, whatever. We moved on. We had a nice little tasty streak for a while. Lost to the Canucks 2-1. Strake. Sorry, High Priest. Thank you.
Thank you.
We lost to the Canucks last night. To be honest, I always find Canucks Oilers games have just like a little bit of extra boredom mixed in. There's like one extra tablespoon of boring mixed in with everyone somehow. Even though it was a decent game, we played fairly well. But it's funny because I like usually after any loss of any loss really, I'm in the pits, I'm in the dumps, you know? And it's like I have my fondue set in the cupboard that I'm used to breaking out a couple of times a year, where I liquefy and make molten misery that I then dip a series of bread and cheeses into, you know, and like that's just part of my routine. I have my Oilers misery fondue set in the cupboard, but I'm thinking like maybe it might be time to just get rid of it, you know, because I haven't had to use it in a little while this year, and I could use the cupboard space, I could use the mental space. Like maybe I need to get used to the fact that the Oilers are actually a good team now, or an average to good team, and I can throw out all my accoutrement related to dealing with the misery of being an Oilers fan. Is this like, you guys? What do you guys think?
Well, for starters, I would do chocolate in the fondue there, so with a variety of fruits. I'm more the sugar girl. So,
right.
You know what? Get rid of it, huh? The biggest thing for me is how much better they're playing defensively, and how scared were we all at the beginning of the season when they went 3-6, and it was painfully obvious how much they were missing Oscar Klefbom. It's been very interesting to watch everybody settle in. Like Darnell Nurse was bad at the beginning of the season. I think we can all say that. And I mean, he's their number one defenseman. He's incredible. He's putting up points. He's defending well. And Tyson Barrie really settled in, which was so nice. And so, I mean, that for me, and then plus the depth guys have come through. They're actually scoring. And they can be put in a bunch of situations, you know, talking about Jujhar Khaira yesterday, like talk about a guy who's playing with confidence. He's playing in a lot of different situations. He's coming up with clutch goals. It's so nice.
It's true. What about you, High Priest? Where are you at on my Oilers fondue misery set? Should I get rid of it? Should I hold on to it for a little while longer?
I mean, I don't think you should get rid of it. I think they're a really good team, but I think you should keep it just because. I mean, this has been a long 25 years, right?
Right.
You've gotten a lot of use out of that thing over the past 25 years.
Not lately.
Yeah.
And it's valuable mental cupboard space. You know, like I open that cupboard up and I'm like, Jesus Christ, is that fondue set still in there? When was the goddamn last time we used that thing, guys? It's been a little while. And you know, maybe I want to get like a sandwich press or something. Yeah, since August. I was definitely using it heavily through August. No question about that.
I guess what I mean is this: like going into the qualifiers last year, we were all kind of thinking sort of the same thing, that maybe it's time to get rid of the fondue set.
Yeah.
And I'm just like 7 days later, I've never seen you eat so much fondue.
Well,
you know what I mean? You were getting a lot of use out of the fondue set. So maybe, you know, there's still, I think this team can still get better. And I think there's things that there's lessons that will need to be learned that I'm not
Mm.
sure this group has learned yet, but I could be wrong. I will say that I think they're playing very well, and it's been a long time, maybe since I've sat down to watch a game where I can say with, you know, at least more sort of confidence that I think they're going to. I just sort of think they're going to win the game. But that being said, I mean,
Yeah.
we had that series against Toronto. The way you think of this, the way I've been thinking of the season this year, I've noticed is so completely different than the patterns I developed to think of.
Yeah, exactly.
To think
That's
of
what I'm
other
talking about.
seasons. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's so hard to make sense of it, because like the Toronto series was sort of a stinker, kind of an unlucky series as well, but 3
Sure.
losses in a row. And then we played Calgary. We played a great game, and then we played Ottawa for 3 games. And as much as people say you need to get those wins no matter what, and I believe too, obviously you have to, that's why we play the game. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it was Ottawa, and it seemed as though they weren't in maybe their best shape. So we kind of, it felt like we had a really easy time with Ottawa. So I'm still not, it's really hard for me to judge the team. I've gone so many times, I've gone almost the entire range of watching a game in a very compressed amount of time. So I don't know. I think
Quinn has a retort here. So
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So one thing I will say, you've talked about lessons that they've had to learn, and beating Ottawa 3 in a row is one of the biggest lessons that they had to learn, because this team was notorious for years for putting together maybe 1 or 2 wins and then playing a team lower than them in the standings. And for a long time, there wasn't many of them, and they would come out flat and they would be awful. So I will say that that is one of the biggest lessons that they had to learn, and they've done that. They've beat Ottawa 7 times this year, right? So you got to beat the teams below you, and that's what the Oilers are doing this year, which is a massive change from years past.
True. It's a really good point. And like the dread of going into those games as an Oilers fan is something that has been just omnipresent until now. But like, you know, I again, like the high priest said, every one of those Ottawa games, I was convinced they would go in. They were going to win it. You know, I had confidence in them, which is very bizarre.
Other thing is, like, in terms, that's what I mean about in terms of them stringing together, because completely, I agree. Like, consistency has been one of the problems with this team for years, but we've also never played the same team 3 times in a row. Like, I have no idea what that feels like from a player's perspective. Like, it's like a miniature series. Like, I find it really difficult to judge where the team is truly at because of the way this season is set up. Like, I don't know. It's just been so strange. I haven't been able to wrap my head around the parameters of the COVID season.
It's tricky too, because it's like ginger ale versus the rest of pop. You know, you're constantly trying to figure out, why is ginger ale so much more delicious than other pop, and yet somehow like different in its own category. And this season is like the ginger ale of Oilers seasons. You know what I mean?
Like,
I mean, I have to think that personally, I think the 3, like the little mini series, I think it would be really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. I mean, Toronto did it to Edmonton, but then Edmonton did it to Ottawa. Like, I just mentally, I think you have to stay so sharp to not just give one away.
Totally.
And that is not easy to do, in my opinion. I mean, that's coming from like a mental, you know, not a mentally sharp person. That was never my strength as an athlete. We'll just put it that way.
Let me ask you, Quinn, because honestly, another component I think of Oilers dread that we might be in the process of relearning or re-educating ourselves on is the fear of losing our good players to free agency and et cetera. And I think the big story right now, the biggest pending story at least, is the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins situation. I feel as though in the media I'm hearing a few more rumblings out there. I don't know, it could just be posturing. You never know with these types of things. These negotiations kind of drag on until all of a sudden you get news. So maybe I'm freaking out a little too much. But do you think Oilers fans should be worried at all that there's any potential that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins doesn't re-up this coming off season? Anything's possible, right?
Of course, anything is possible. I mean, they never thought they'd trade Wayne Gretzky. So, I would find it hard to believe because, quite frankly, Nuge wants to stay here. He knows that it's a flat salary cap. He's not stupid. And if he wants to be a part of it, he knows what kind of money he has to take. You know, and of course, like Ken Holland just said the other day, it has to be a deal that makes sense for both, of course. And Nuge knows that, right? So I think I think deep down he knows that he'll probably resign, but you've got to try to make as much money as you can. But you can't make a lot more than what you make right now, plain and simple. Like it works right now. You're not going to make 8.5 like Leon because you're not Leon. So yeah, I'm on the train is I just don't see how it doesn't get done because he's a smart guy. He's been in the league a long time. And from what he says, he wants to stay here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just worried that there's someone out there who's courting him and saying, look, Ryan, we'll give you 7.5 times 5 if you just hold out, you know, like, but I mean, again, I think it's partially just like a complex I have as an Oilers fan, just fearing the worst when it comes to these things. I mean, we actually have a boatload of pending free agents. Like Ken Holland has a ton of fucking work for him this offseason in terms of like guys to re-sign, RFAs, UFAs. Like I think it's a huge number, right? Like he's got some serious homework.
And with a flat cap, like it's just an absolute nightmare. It's going to be a flat cap for a while though. So a lot of teams are going to be in the same boat, right? So I don't know if we're in the time of seeing a monster offer sheet for Nuge or anything like that. So
we also, I mean, to me, everything you two are saying is right. And then I asked myself, like, well, then why hasn't Nuge signed yet? Because to be honest, I mean, his season this year, I don't think Nuge has lived up to his own standards, and I'm not sure he's 100% lived up to the fan base's expectations either.
I'm also not 100% convinced he's 100% healthy, but I mean, it is interesting.
And all of those things,
like look at his usage in this contract year, right? It starts off the year on Connie's wing, you know, should be like the ideal situation for a contract year. Now they put him on the second line and kind of told him, look, you try and drive a line. Which you figure if he can't drive a line on his own, that should in theory help in contract negotiations. But I wonder if there's also like a little nagging injury here, perhaps.
And there very well may be, and all of those things make me less confident that maybe I really don't know what is going to happen with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but I'd say I'm about, I don't know, 40 to 50% less confident that this was like a no-brainer. Like I think something could happen with Nuge. There's a lot that's happened. Like he's not playing kind of up to his standards, I don't think. He's now in a position where it's on him to drive a line, and he wanted to play center. Like he wanted to be put in that position, right? That's so.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't. These negotiations can kind of drag on and on and on. And time, like there's a bit of a chicken run or a playing chicken factor a tiny bit. I just don't see Ken Holland saying, okay, I want one more top six forward. I'm going to go ahead and if I don't have Nuge, I'm going to go out and be looking for 2 top six forwards. Like there's a world of difference between looking for 2 top six forwards for your team and 1, you know?
Yeah, but we also don't. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we don't know. Like, I mean, maybe Ken Holland is stalling this because if Nuge comes out and can drive his own line and make this thing work, then he's worth more.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, on both sides, both parties have something to prove right now. Because if you're a winger, they're more a dime a dozen, that's for sure, right? So, but if he can, and I haven't actually minded that line with Puljujarvi and Ennis so far. I mean, they were pretty good at the end of the game last night. They kept getting
looked
ice
decent
time.
last game, yeah.
Yeah, last game. Sorry. And so I think that there's a real chance that both sides are waiting to see how this goes with him back driving a line at center.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask you, Quinn, like, I mean, we talked about Mike Smith. I have a theory that he was involved in some kind of wizarding activity in the off season, and that's why he ended up having to start late. I think the injury was related to some sort of kidnapping or some kind of issue within the guild. but like right now he's playing like a man possessed. I mean, I think he's probably quieting a lot of those critics that are just quick to point out his age. The high priest has mentioned that it kind of bothers him how much it comes up in conversations. But like,
I mean, Tom Brady can like just laugh at that, right?
Yeah. I mean,
like, I don't know why we're talking about age.
There's been plenty of goalies that have played actually pretty late. So, I mean, are we looking at a situation where like this starter's job, even say like next year, is like Mike Smith's to lose? Like even are we far removed from big game hunting for a goalie free agent or someone in a trade?
Maybe it's Alex Stalock's to lose.
Mm.
I would not put it past that Alex Stalock and Mike Smith are the Oilers goalies next year. I mean, I don't think that there's any doubt that they buy Koskinen out. I
Saucy take. Yeah, I've heard people are musing about it.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it because like I always have I have such a soft spot for the human beings that they are. And Mikko Koskinen is such a nice human and he wants to play well and he wants to be great. And I mean, he was very good against Vancouver on Saturday night, I thought. But he's not good enough to be making the money that he makes. Alex Stalock, I mean, of course, he's coming off, some pretty tough times for sure. And who knows if he wanted to be picked up off waivers and come here because he's a Minnesota guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I think
he's
that sounds right.
8.
Yeah.
So that's not super ideal, but he was playing really well before the season got cut off, and he went through what he went through. So I don't know.
And I mean, let's add to the mix that Stuart Skinner has won 7 games in a row in the AHL after coming here and getting a taste of winning. Like, he won the game he started and then he went to the A and has just been lighting it up.
8, but
yeah. But I mean, a win is a win. Like, the feeling of winning, I think at the end of the day, that's what he's going to take with him from his experience with the Oilers. And now he's on a bit of a heater in the AHL. Like, the Oilers goalie situation is very, very interesting to me. I have no idea. Like, do you think Stalock's going to get some work? Like, where's he at? Is he ready to go? Is he still in quarantine?
Yeah, he's still in quarantine. So he ended up driving here from Minnesota. Right. So of course that's a delay, right?
Right.
And so he's still, like, I can't remember how long ago that was, but I mean it's 2 weeks, right? So that's a long time when it comes to like hockey. So he's got to be getting fairly close, I would say, at this point.
And then what do you see happening once he's ready to go? Do you see him getting some starts?
Oh yeah, 100% I do. I see them 100% rolling with 3 goalies. Maybe they go back down to 8 defensemen because right now they're carrying 9, right?
Right. Yeah.
So do you think one of them is on the taxi squad? I mean, Koskinen's going to clear waivers. Nobody's taking that contract, right?
Right.
So maybe one of them ends up on the taxi squad and then Dylan Wells gets sent back down. But I wouldn't be surprised if they carried 3 goalies.
Do you see a situation sort of where it's right now, if things kind of keep going the way they're going, there'll be Mike Smith getting the majority of the games and then Alex Stalock and Mikko kind of coming in and out?
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
That seems back up and running. Yeah.
That seems such a change to the flow of everything from where the Oilers are right now, like suddenly moving into this. That'll be interesting to see how that
goalie,
you know what I mean? That totally changes. I mean, it starts from the back, right? So the entire way the guys are playing, I'm such a believer in that. That's where the game starts. And then how the team plays is sort of in direct relation to their goalie. Well, it'll just be so different. It's hard to imagine. That's a drastic change if that's what's coming.
See, I suspect they're still going to I think Koskinen has a decent chance of outplaying Stalock down the stretch, and Mike Smith will be our starter in the playoffs, assuming we get there. I don't know. I haven't given up completely on Mikko yet, but I think there's a decent chance he gets bought out this summer. But I haven't given up on this season yet for him as the backup. Because I mean, yes, he's had some bad games. He's let in the first goal fairly often, but he's usually done a decent job in games after that. His underlying save percentage numbers have been pretty good the last few weeks. So I would be kind of surprised to see Stalock. I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. Goalies do it all the time. But yeah, I'm sad because we, you know, like the High Priest, we have a very Miko focused household. At least we certainly did last year, and it's a sad state of affairs. But
Whoa,
that's just
wait
how
a
things
second.
roll.
I've been pro Mike Smith since before the qualifiers. This was a very Miko household, but I've been very pro Mike Smith since. I've just liked him better as a goalie. I mean, you say all right, like you're not sure, but if you go back, look at the tapes. I've been a pretty pro Mike Smith guy for a while.
That's true.
No?
That's true.
Yes, that is true. Thank you.
And besides his play, there's just that fiery competitor that is so much more important. I mean, that was a huge problem with the Oilers at the start, like with that slow start, is that they didn't have that fire. They didn't have that guy because James Neal was out, who's another guy who's said to be pretty fiery and pretty like get the guys hyped in the room, and Mike Smith. And so they couldn't dig themselves out of the holes because they didn't have that edge to them. Yeah. So I mean, I love that about Mike Smith as well. So
yes. Huge personality in the room. Listen, Quinn, we'll start the wind down procedure. I know you got to go in about 3 or 4 minutes here.
Got a show to put together. I got to be on TV.
So glad you could come back on. We'll be sure to invite you on with more frequency if possible. And we did start a Patreon as well. We're going to be doing bonus content for our paying subscribers. So we might have to try and goad you in there, maybe give you a little remuneration, symbolic remuneration. You know,
like that, yeah.
But what else do you think are kind of some of the most interesting stories as we go into, you know, both the trade deadline coming up and really the rest of the season here is gonna bear down upon us surprisingly fast, I think. Like, what do you think are the most interesting stories surrounding the team right now, or even the league?
Well, I mean, obviously with trade deadline, the whole quarantine thing is such an issue. So I just don't see what Canadian teams end up doing. What do I think? I'm going to be interested to see how Calgary does under Daryl Sutter. I'm not super sold on that team just because, and maybe it was Jeff Ward, but there was something wrong with them for sure. Like they weren't the same Calgary team even from last year, right? And they've got, you know, a few games in hand on the Oilers, which the Oilers still have more points than they have games in hand. So like, that's fine. Interested, you know, like I think it's, Ken Holland said it, and I think it's going to be a photo finish to the playoffs because the Oilers have played 30 and there's a couple, like Winnipeg's only played 27. Calgary, I believe, has only played 27, something like that. So it's just going to be, it's going to be interesting, but the Oilers have found that kind of rhythm to get out of to get themselves out of trouble. They've figured out how to put win streaks together, which was something that they hadn't been able to do for years. So, and I'm excited to just continue to see Jesse Puljujarvi grow because I was not a fan of his. I've said this before. I wouldn't have been upset if they traded him. And now, I mean, I couldn't be happier. He's a charming kid now in media availabilities and love his net front presence. Need to see him score a bit more, of course, but I think see what Nuge can do with that line.
Yeah. I think Jesse is definitely one of the biggest stories, probably going down the stretch run here. We covered the goalie situation. I'm really curious to see, like, what would you guys put the over under, just as a final thought, on Tyson Barrie re-signing with the Oilers this offseason? I mean, I know they want him, but like, can they keep him?
Can they keep him?
It's a coin flip for me. It's 50-50.
I think he's enjoying himself this year, which obviously makes a huge difference, right? He wasn't happy in Toronto. I'm with you, like 50-50. Again, like the numbers have to work, and can he, you know, with Oscar presumably coming off LTIR. I don't even know. Like when Oscar talked, I didn't even know if he was for sure that he would ever play again, right? So he might still be a wild card.
It's true. Yeah. What about you, High Priest? Have you seen anything in the entrails or while performing the sacred rites?
Well, one thing that stood out to me about his comments is that he really does seem happy here, and I think he really kind of clearly. It sounded like he recognized that he was playing with two guys that are, the best players this league has seen in a really long time, and I still think players. There's a point. There's this weird thing that happens where when you're playing with like the best players in the world, that kind of it counts for a lot, and it's not necessarily something that you look for. You want to make that work. Playing with these guys is an important part in the deal to whatever happens next for Barrie, and I think we might start seeing more guys want to stay in Edmonton, and it'll be weird because we've never really had that for years and years, but I can see Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl becoming more of a way to keep guys here.
Even more than in the past, because we have more success as a team now too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Quinn, I'll let you go. We'll let you go. We know you got to start your broadcast there. Quinn Phillips from Global Television News. Am I saying that right?
Global TV, Global News. Yeah. I mean, global news in Edmonton.
Yeah. So glad you had time to join us today. It was a super fun conversation. We'll definitely invite you on, try and have you on again sooner this time than in 6 months, if your schedule allows. But yeah, Oilers fans, just throw that misery fondue set away. That's all I'm going to say. That's the final word.
Make room in the cabinet.
Yeah, make room in that mental cabinet. All right, guys, we'll hook it up soon, and we'll just look forward to the game against Calgary tomorrow.
Yeah,
that was good. Say hi to your dad for us, Quinn. Say hi to your dad for us.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
See you later. Bye.